Hello. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amanda Cassett, founder and CEO of Serotonin, the Web3 marketing agency and product studio. I have an amazing panel of guests with me today. I'm hoping we can start with introductions, maybe beginning with Matt.
Sure. I'm Matt Medved, co-founder, CEO, and editor-in-chief of Now Media. You may know our flagship brand, NFT Now, Web3 digital media platform, building the future of tokenized media. We also have The Gateway, we just brought to Korea as the largest digital art experience to ever come to the region. I'm super excited for this great panel. Let's go.
Hey, Frank started NFT projects called DeGods and Utes, and the #1 Luca Nets fanboy. Let's go.
I'm Luca Nets. I'm the CEO of Pudgy Penguins, and I'm also Frank's #1 fan.
We got a lot of good fans on stage, a lot of fans in the audience. Let's start with a question for Matt, but please hop in and chat and respond, and let's have fun. We've seen this rise and fall and maybe resurrection of the NFT economy. What kinds of aspects of NFTs should we be paying attention to heading into the next bull market?
Honestly, never bet against the power of memes and people having fun. Like, I feel like those two factors have driven so much of the metas that we've seen in the space, of the projects that come out of nowhere, from like Jack Butcher's checks to like when Goblin Town had its moment to like everything has been driven by like the power of mimetic expression and also like people having fun, banding together. Like we're in the depths of a bear market right now. Like the people who are still showing up here are doing it out of a sense of belief. They're doing it out of a sense of conviction. And like you create opportunities for those people to connect, to have fun together. That's an incredibly powerful force, right? And so like I feel like there's that whole like this like, you know, the top of the curve, the low curve, the mid curve thing. It's like don't overthink it. If you see like this like mimetic expression, if you see like internet culture rallying around something, pay attention to that. Because like one thing we've seen most recently is like a lot of big platforms that came into the space and were like, yo, I'm gonna bring in all this big Web2 IP and you know it's just gonna drop it here and it's gonna be a success, you know, like Recur, Nifty's, all that, they're all out of business now. The projects that are still succeeding, the projects that are still like moving the needle here, two of whom are up here on the stage with Pudgy and DeGods, like this is about medium native culture, right? So that's what I would say we should be paying attention to as we move from bear into bull.
How about you guys? What do you think we should be paying attention to?
Yeah, I think cults obviously like are gonna be sustainable just because there's inherent value that people see with each other. Like it's the big difference, right? Like a community where people value each other, want to spend time with each other is obviously going to find its way and adapt to whatever the new metas or ecosystem, how the ecosystem changes. And then also I think, again, what Luca's doing with building a real fucking business, I think even an interesting insight is like most of the people I've met throughout this week, everyone's like working on something. It's been like other conferences in the past, you meet somebody, they might be a trader, they might just be like doing something else, they're interested in NFTs. Everybody that I'm meeting, even at this conference, the first question I've been asking is, what are you working on? And people always have interesting answers. And so I think that, yeah, like the next wave of NFTs is finding creative ways to leverage that community and leverage NFTs to build something that's a lot bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question and an interesting thesis when you're looking at the future of NFTs. If you understand NFTs, I think they're going to be the most important product for the blockchain and for consumer adoption. At the end of the day, we're social beings, we're cultural beings, and this is the first time in the era of this technology that people are able to interact and identify with this technology in a seamless and consumer-friendly way. You know, I'm a firm believer in this, and I know Frank is a firm believer in this, and I know Matt is as well. But a new era of NFTs is upon us, and I think one, cater to the consumer, and in catering to your existing community is eventually going to take precedent in a way that I think we haven't seen before.
Awesome. I want to direct the next question first to Frank, which is, you've started 2 successful projects, not just one. What are the lessons that other creators should know based on your experience?
I think that people under-index how important attention is. And especially in crypto, it's like people spend a lot of time fixating on a lot of details that they matter, but they won't matter if there's nobody to pay attention to it. You know, a good example of this, even outside of NFTs, like Dogecoin stays a top 10 market cap, you know, cryptocurrency. And if you evaluate crypto strictly on something like pure utility, that you might look at that and think that's dumb. But if you evaluate it as a closer to an index on attention, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Dogecoin, there's more Americans that know about Dogecoin than Ethereum. And so I think that that is something that a lot of creators miss is they'll write the long white paper, they'll create the really long idea that, you know, is not ultimately, to Matt's point, mimetic. And then they struggle with getting basic distribution. And I think that, yeah, like that should be a focus earlier on in the process and trying to even make ideas and make things that would fit within a tweet or fit in a bite-sized way that makes it easy for people to talk about and share. Because if it's too complex of an idea, it's not even going to penetrate the crypto Twitter ecosystem, let alone mass market, let alone people outside of it. And so, yeah, I just think that's something a lot of creators miss.
So as a marketer, I obviously believe in the importance of memes and cults, but just to play devil's advocate and push back on what all of you guys were saying, what about fundamentals? Like with a meme or a cult, couldn't opinion about the project suddenly change and then it would be gone because it has focused on memes rather than something else, like what sometimes happens with Dogecoin?
I think it's about aligned interests and culture. I think at the end of the day, when you understand the difference between, you know, some technically savvy product and some cultural product, the networked value I think is the most important value that I think people underestimate. When you understand success and in business, I preach this a lot just as an entrepreneur, but it's not really what you know, but a lot of who you know. And I think these, you know, whether it's rallying behind a meme or rallying behind some sort of message or some sort of product, at the end of the day, I think that is the technical utility that people are looking for. I think behavior in the crypto and the blockchain space is too transactional. At the end of the day, the era of emotional utility is here. You look at companies like Disney and Warner and Pixar have built trillions of dollars of market value off of emotional utility, and that's what brings people together. If we were AI robots, I would agree with you, but we're not. And at the end of the day, people want, like as Frank says, they want friendships. They want to cultivate behind an idea. They don't necessarily just want, you know, 100% rev shares and some transactional nominal value. Those things end up not working almost every single time.
And to add to this, you know, it's interesting because I think where it gets confused is when people do things that you don't necessarily need an NFT to do. So for us, for example, we've had like 120 events this year. We haven't hosted a vast majority of those. But if you think about it, it's like if I'm into the Lakers, a basketball team, and I'm following all the content around the Lakers, and I meet someone else that's a Lakers fan, it's pretty sick. Like, you got to talk to them. You're like, oh, you see this recent trade, you watch the recent game, and you have like this magic icebreaker where you can get a lot closer. And what we've noticed within our community, we have a global audience. Like, that's the magic of NFTs. You have people that are interested and excited about it, but you compare that to a regular content creator, you know, people that are deep in crypto, deep into NFTs, they're spending a disproportionate amount of their time engaging in this community. And part of it is because they spent a lot of money on it. Part of it is because they're building something in the space. Part of it is they're just having a lot of fun. And so having these events all over the world, people becoming best friends on this like internet native community is something that I did on forums growing up. Like, I just grew up on the internet, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that the older that you get, the harder that is to find. And NFTs have this sweet spot where people have this aligned interest, they're following the same kind of content pipeline, so they meet up and they have, you know, a lot to talk about, and they're much more likely to form these deep relationships, which is hard to even put a price on. That's just one example. I think broadly across the space, where people get the most excited are just things that you can do that are only possible because of NFTs versus just like NFT adjacent or Web3 adjacent. And so that's where I think fundamentals, it's such a broad word in the same way utility is, it's by definition the most broad word possible. It just means like useful in some capacity. So I think there's a lot of discovery left in the space, and that's why people complain about it today, but I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought up fundamentals, because that's been our mantra since day one, is building a business based on fundamentals. Obviously, we're a media company. It's a bit of a different model than the community-based NFT project. But, you know, for us, it was like, you know, we're an open book. year one, we did 900K in revenue. Year two, we did 3.2 million in revenue. We're on pace for 10% growth, and that's all without programmatic ads. We've always been all about building a new media model, doing things better, and building that based on authenticity and credibility. During the bull run, we turned down high seven figures in revenue because it would have cost us our credibility. Every cookie cutter PFP, every rug pull, every low effort cash grab, we're trying to throw money at us for marketing and promo, and we said no to all of them. We said no to every single partner, potential sponsored content, all that for our first 9 months, because we recognized that our credibility is worth a lot more than what people were throwing at us, and that once you lose that trust, you can never regain it. The first people we said yes to were Coinbase and United Masters, and that's the bar that we set, and that's the precedent that we set in terms of, you want to work with us, we're going to be building a business based on fundamentals, and in a market and in a climate where there's so much smoke and mirrors and vaporware, we really have stuck to that.
I love these answers because you're talking about having a business with traditional fundamentals, and our other answers, which I think are also really cool, are about how the friendships and connections from these communities are a type of fundamentals themselves, and that IP can be fundamental, that Disney has these long-term relationships with its fans and its users, and there's no reason why there can't be new IP that creates those kinds of long-term relationships. So I want to direct the next question to you, Luca, which is, you've created one of the few and first successful bridges between digital and physical. Do you think that's going to be a sustainable business model for projects in the space, or is it unique to you? And what were the factors that went into your success there?
Yeah, I think there's a new era of NFTs, and I think the era of bringing a product and meeting consumers where they are is upon us. At the end of the day, I think we all believe in the digital aspect and the digital future, but to pretend that the digital future is here right now, today, is to be negligent of just consumer behavior and where the consumer is. I very much want to meet the consumer where they are. And so when you look at, Pudgy Penguins and where Pudgy Penguins is positioned, it's the #1 cute IP on the blockchain. And cute IP in the world has the highest addressable TAM, or total addressable market, for consumer behavior. And so I think it's my responsibility and my ability to go out and reach and impact a real and sustainable user base that is clearly consuming and digesting all of this content and all of these products elsewhere. I want to meet the consumer where they are today. I have no interest in telling them about NFTs or Web3. At the end of the day, that will happen with the tides of the sales of, whether the bull market comes back and when it comes back. I think very much today is, how do I create a connection between a character that people love, that people can unite around and participate without knowing that it's necessarily about NFTs or Web3. I think if I can accomplish that, I can create a user base that's a lot different than our current user base today. I think one of the things that has plagued the NFT space, and honestly that I think plagues just the blockchain industry in general, is this transactional relationship. If we want to win, and if we want this industry to win, it has to be a consumer-facing industry. That is the inevitable elephant in the room that it seems nobody wants to address because it's hard to address. And so for us, we have this cute Pudgy Penguin that now today gets 50 million views a day across all social channels. Right now we're on track to sell $10 million in retail sales and toys in our first 7 months. And this is the first example, I think, of crypto's first ever consumer-facing product, that whether you're, whatever region you're in, whether you're in Asia or Europe or America, or your age demographic from a 5-year-old to a 60-year-old, no matter your ethnic background or your interests, you all can rally behind a cohesive character that everybody can enjoy. And so if I can create that emotional attachment with this cute little Pudgy Penguin, when Web3 and NFTs start to get a little bit more momentum, I will be the most familiar character in the industry, and that's what we want to do. And so based on what you just asked is, can anybody do it? Yes, and I want everybody to do it. Every time we take a step forward, I hope it incentivizes, whether you're an L1 or an L2 or an NFT project, there is an angle around consumer-facing products that you have to be paying attention to. I feel like this industry is looking inwards and not outwards, and eventually we're going to fail if we don't start looking outwards. You have to do it. It's hard, it's a challenge, but it's necessary if we really want blockchain, crypto, Web3, and NFTs to really win.
Frank, are you also thinking about the physical world, or how are you thinking about facing consumers?
Well, before I answer that, I just want to say, the thing that inspires me so much, even just being a peer to Luca, is I think he doesn't talk about it enough, but he's such a beast when he was doing e-commerce, and Web 2. And I think like broadly, like we just have a really high talent person that came into the space, and I feel like we should all be very lucky that like he's representing the space in this way. And I think all the stuff going on with Pudgy Penguins is deeply exciting, and in the crypto Twitter sphere doesn't get talked about enough. Like we talk about it all the time, and I'm always blown away. But yeah, I think the crypto Twitter sphere should appreciate. We're out here talking about friend tech, which I think is cool, but mass adoption. But this is like these are doing real numbers, and excited to see where it goes. Yeah, I think for me, we actually talk about this a lot. Like physical and digital seems like a logical pair. Like I think about broadly in the future when people buy something that's physical, having some type of digital receipt, digital claim, whether that's an NFT, whether it's a collectible or a different digital experience, like it's obvious. Like of course all these things are going to have it. Of course everything that you kind of interact with is going to have some type of digital relationship. I think the question again comes back to me. NFTs, like when people talk about NFTs for ticketing, right? It's like that's not going to make people's bags pump that are in this space today, but it's exciting in that means that people might have a wallet that they care about. It means that we might have more infrastructure for people to care about the different types of NFTs that we have today. I think we want to do more with physical, but we've definitely been much more focused on the internet native community building side more than anything. But yeah, it's just exciting across the board there.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Like the interplay between digital and physical is like really, like the vision behind the gateway is really squared on that. Let me just see like a show of hands. Like who out there, raise your hand if you own an NFT. Cool, love to see it. So everyone, whether you raised your hand or not, like everyone in this room we are all part of the last generations to grow up without digital ownership from day one. So future generations are going to grow up owning things digitally. They're going to own things physically. They're not going to have the same hang-ups as we do. They're not going to talk about right-click save. They're not going to talk about how do I hang it on my wall. They are going to appreciate them both from their own unique strengths and appeals. And ultimately, that's the vision that we're building for. That's the future that we're building for. A lot of the reluctance to accept this is going to age out. And so for us, especially, because when we started NFT Now, it was really about courting the art world. That's where we started, was in digital art and putting art out there. And we had to recognize that a lot of people, had all these misconceptions about what this space was, right? They felt fear about it. They felt threatened by it. I was like, look, if the only thing I knew about NFTs or what I read about in the headlines, like I might not like them either. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's always an and, it's not an or, right? People are always going to need paintings and sculptures for their home, and they're also going to want to look really good in the metaverse, and they're going to want to own digital art and put it in their galleries. Like these things are not mutually exclusive. And so the first iteration of the gateway was about showing the art world that, and since then we've been expanding that into lifestyle, into digital fashion, into luxury, into gaming, to show people that this digital future is around the corner, and if you're not building for it, then you're going to fall behind.
Yeah, and sorry, just one last point on that. I think, when you look at the fundamentals of NFTs, it's really, digital ownership, right? And
100%.
Root ownership.
When you leverage that digital ownership, it just creates a better value proposition. Like, look at, we'll use Pudgy Toys for an example. When you buy a Pudgy toy for $10, you unlock NFTs at no cost to you. That's a value proposition where you can then go trade those NFTs, exchange those with friends, or take them somewhere else. But that's a unique value proposition that any other toy next to me on the same shelf, whether they're a more familiar IP, it's a better value for the end consumer. It's a better bang for your buck. And at the end of the day, I think as digital and physical start to intertwine, the idea of buying something physically, being able to redeem something digitally, and then being able to do whatever I want with that, whether it's buy, sell, trade, use, or exchange with a friend or a counterparty, that adds such an interesting layer to the collectible and the consumer product market that I think is just not to be underestimated.
Totally. And you're also pushing forward the way that the media business model works. Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So from day one, NFT Now, we knew we wanted to build a better media model. Since we launched NFTnow.com, we have not had a single cookie, no pixels. We don't even need a privacy policy because we do not track our users. That has been something that's really important to us because from day one we've said privacy is a fundamental human right. And coming from the legacy media world, I founded Billboard Dance, I ran Spin Magazine as editor-in-chief, I ran content at Modern Luxury. I've seen just how broken the Web 2 media model is from the inside out. In Web 2 media, people are the product. There's been a complete lack of trust. Public credibility in the media is at its lowest point ever. You have misaligned misaligned incentives based on programmatic advertisements that got everybody in a clickbait race to the bottom. And you have all these violations of privacy. And so at the end of the day, we were like, hey, you know what? The difference between audience and community that we're seeing in this space with Web3 is really powerful. What does that look like translated to the media model? And so when we talk about tokenized media and building tokenized media, there's two buckets to it. There's the tokenization of communities around media, which is super exciting because it's an opportunity to realign incentives, create what has been a really one-way street for generations, make it two-way, make it a whole roundabout where people can get involved, where they can actually co-create the stories that are being told, and they can actually earn rewards for doing so. You know, we are building the Now Network. The Now Pass is our membership pass to access that. The Now Network's going to be launching later this year. And what we're going to do is allow our users to be able to actually earn XP points, by consuming our content, by sharing our content, by engaging with our content, by voting on which artists are going to be in next up and things like that, and actually being able to share in the value that we create, thinking about this almost as like a loyalty program and leveraging our network of amazing projects, amazing builders, amazing artists in the space to just create value for the people who really rock with us and want to do it. The other bucket, which is super interesting now of tokenized media, is the actual tokenization of media, which is articles, podcasts, video, images, photo, video across the board on the blockchain. And that's something that's actually gained a ton of importance in recent months because of the rise of AI disinformation. We've been talking about the need to tokenize content for on-chain provenance, for verifiable authenticity for a long time. And honestly, at audiences like this, people's eyes tended to glaze over. They didn't really get it. The community side makes sense, but what is this for? But now, ever since those viral photos of Trump getting arrested that were made in Midjourney fooled tons of people in America, ever since the AI-generated photo of the explosion at the Pentagon knocked billions off the S&P 500, look, AI is never going to be less sophisticated than it is right now. It is only going to get more hyper-realistic. It is only going to become more dangerous in the hands of nefarious actors, and we are going to need to verify the truth. We're heading into an election year in the United States where we are going to be tested. The media is the fourth branch of government, and it's going to be tested. And we're building tech around that, and that's something that I think is incredibly important as we navigate the future of understanding, how does one verify the truth in this era?
So those explorations are super interesting, and part of the problem with the Web2 media business model is just how hard it is to monetize content online, the way the internet was first introduced to us. Luca, you recently tweeted that every major tech company should be incubating IP. With the cost of creating content potentially going down because of AI, maybe you can talk about how that IP is valuable in a world where content is theoretically cheap.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing that I tweeted, but I basically encourage every major tech business, or honestly any major business that can afford to spin it off, to lean into IP and to lean into character building as a go-to-market strategy. And the reason why I think of this is the same reason why I think Pudgy Penguins is going to be one of the most important products in the crypto industry, is because I'm very much a Trojan horse for this space. When you buy a toy for Pudgy Penguins and you sign up to our platform that you redeem via the QR code on the toy, you're signing up and creating a custody wallet via a custody wallet solution. And you have your first blockchain wallet within 60 seconds of purchasing that toy if you follow the instructions. At the end of the day, we need to meet consumers where they are, and to meet consumers where they are is to meet them in a place that is unintimidating and is familiar. There is nothing easier than to invade the hearts and minds of everyday people than with characters. Characters are infamous for doing this. It is not my playbook, and it's not me telling you this. It's just a known fact. You see this recently with what Nerf is doing. McDonald's just introduced their character back again. Reddit has been doing it for a while now. It's a great medium to get people excited and to take intimidating products and intimidating rollouts and make them unintimidating. A character is a great way and a great medium to get people involved. And I think this is not just applicable for blockchain and for the crypto industry, though I think it's probably the most important critical facet today. I think every industry can leverage cute characters or any character to get their message across to their audience.
And to your point on content becoming cheaper, where you're going to just see so much of shit on your timeline every day, that I think this is where community, ultimately, that the buzzword that it's become, matters, in that it's going to be harder and harder. And I tell content creators in the space this all the time. It's going to be harder and harder to get on the timeline. They're literally monetizing the attention economy now. People are getting their payouts. And so I think, finding your niche and finding your core group is going to be so important and such a huge advantage towards scaling and growing outside of that concentric circle, where if you go blind into just hitting the algorithm. I mean, I've had tweets that have gotten 20,000, 30,000 likes, and I'll get 50 new followers from it. No joke. Because when you guys see a viral tweet, or X post or whatever, are you going and following the person? Most of the time, not really. So building that native audience and finding people that care about the thing that you're doing is quickly becoming a playbook for fucking every company now. Every company has their community department. Every company is trying to figure out how to have their core diehard people and leverage them in the best way. And I think, again, NFTs, that's a place where they fit kind of snugly in an interesting way.
So the answer is that with this giant content asymmetry that's coming from AI, building communities around content is the differentiator. But just throwing it back to you, Frank, you clearly believe in more than just content and community. You recently migrated your project to the Ethereum mainnet, so you think technology matters. Sometimes when I have these conversations about mass adoption of crypto or Web3, people say nobody cares about the underlying technology, but clearly you made a decision for a reason. Do you think that consumers are going to care, or do you think that projects need to care?
To be totally honest, and this is why it's super fun being friends with Luca, because we actually have different takes on this, but it's interesting to sharpen. I actually don't really care about mass market at all right now. I'm a big believer in concentric and referral-based growth, right? We have our little bubble right now today. Let's just say this is the NFT space. It's right there, it's tiny. And outside of that, you have crypto, people that are interested in crypto. Outside of that, you have people that are never bought crypto, but interested broadly in crypto NFTs. What I think the worst strategy is honestly trying to sell somebody something that they don't inherently want. So the example of this was Creator League recently was trying to hide. It was this thing with Mr. Beast and all these big creators, and they were hiding the fact that they were actually NFTs. But so then one of these creators pulled out, and everyone's just shitting on NFTs because they were ultimately selling something to people that didn't want it. And I'm way more interested in figuring out how to fix the retention problem. Today, NFTs are literally a leaky bucket. It's imagine, saying, we have a leaky little lifeboat here. Let's go get 1 million people onto this leaky lifeboat, right? It's well, fuck. Let's fix the holes a little bit first before we try to onboard. And that's just my growth brain is, hey, retention is what drives most growth. And so I honestly don't think too hard about, broad, huge swaths of population. I'm thinking these are what people are interested in today. Clearly, people are not satisfied with the NFT experience today. How can we incrementally make that better and better and grow concentrically with some confidence that if we keep making it better and better for our core group, it's going to get bigger in a pretty organic way?
Yeah, it's interesting. At Serotonin, we end up bringing some large brands into the space. We've worked with folks like PayPal, folks like Sotheby's. And for us, what we emphasize with folks coming into the space is root ownership and providing real Web3 onboarding, even if their consumers aren't familiar with Web3 yet. And the reason is we don't want them to lose access to their assets in some future situation. Things like root ownership and decentralization feel like they don't matter until there's a problem. And we just want to look ahead and prevent that problem, even if customers that are coming in from the Gen Pop don't already know about it. But I want to ask you, obviously, you think the PFP trend is coming back for some projects that have found this great connection to consumers or that have these cult-like communities. But what other NFT use cases do you think people should look out for going into the next bull market?
RWAs, real-world assets. I think it's even recently there was this SEC. It's interesting as we get more and more regulatory clarity. I think that people can get a lot more ambitious and start to just do the obvious things that we've been talking about for a really long time. It's probably been 2 cycles now that people are talking about real estate, on the blockchain. And I think in the first wave, it's really delusional and pie in the sky. Now you're getting closer and closer what these first kind of use cases can be. And I just think that is something, if you're talking about mass adoption, very, very obviously, people can understand buying fractional, piece of land. That's a Like that's a no-brainer. And I think a lot of that stuff, we're getting to a place where the technology's gotten so much better. I mean, NFTs wasn't really a thing in 2017 when there was a lot of excitement. And so I think RWAs broadly are just going to become a pretty massive deal. That's my guess.
Cool.
Yeah, look, I mean, somewhat unpopular opinion, but I think PFPs are going to be back in full force next cycle. They just may not be your bags, you know? I think that digital identity is going to be a long-lasting pillar of this space. Our identity explored through artistry has, you know, from cave paintings to Renaissance portraiture, like, this has always been a thing. From AIM profiles to Reddit avatars, digital identity has been important. Now you can own your identity. PFPs aren't going anywhere, but the nature of them may change. It may be more about, you know, their use in gaming or avatars and things like that. It may, you know, like that is going to shift and continue to evolve, but I don't think it's going anywhere. In terms of other use cases, like what really excites me is like one of the reasons I know we're still early is that a lot of people still talk about NFTs as though they're a category when they're really just a new medium that transcends every category. And I think that as these markets mature, I think as these categories mature, you're going to start to see, you know, different areas really take on a life of their own. You know, looking at the differentiation of digital art, looking at, you know, the TV film world in Hollywood, looking at literary NFTs, something very close to my heart as a poet and a writer myself, thinking about how this can disrupt publishing, thinking about all of these different use cases that we've only really scratched the surface on. You know, what I always say is that like one of the reasons why digital art and digital collectibles drove so much mainstream attention and drove so much market volume in this first wave was that we as a society very much understand the value proposition of collecting their physical counterparts, right? Collecting physical art at a Sotheby's or a Christie's, you know, digital collectibles being akin to physical collectibles. But like that's why when I look at like use cases like music NFTs, okay, there's still a gap there, right? We went from paying you know, $15 for a CD to $9.99 for all the music in the world. There's a value disconnect there. People don't necessarily understand the value of owning music, right? I do because I grew up with a father who's obsessed with the Beatles, you know, collecting rare Beatles memorabilia, understanding that vinyl that's signed by all four Beatles could also be your backstage pass, could be your fan club membership, could be your, you know, access to that outlet for your fandom. And so as these different things continue to advance, I think we're going to see a differentiation between these different markets. You're not going to be able to be like, oh, NFTs are down this week. It's going to be about, oh, okay, what's going on in gaming? What's going on in all these different use cases? And I think that that's actually going to be a much more healthy and holistic place for this entire space to be in, because we're going to stop bringing we're going to bring the same consumer and creative priorities into each of these spaces and expecting each project to match them.
Yeah, and I would agree with your PFP narrative. I also agree they'll be back in full force shortly here.
Of course.
Yeah. But I do believe that an era of the boring NFTs will come, and I think authenticating items I think is important. Logistics, there's a lot of interesting use cases there. But I will say there's a lot of that stuff that I don't know. I can't speak on it because I'm not working on it. And so there's probably huge innovations coming in gaming and infrastructure and a plethora of other places. But what I do know is I believe NFTs today have disrupted a $426 billion market, and that market is the collectible business. It today is a better collectible. And so when you look at, you know, what it is to collect, physical collecting has too much friction. The friction in buying and selling, the friction in inauthenticity issues, the friction in spoofing, the friction in not knowing exactly what you're getting and how you're getting it. I think collectibles or NFTs today have solved that problem. And so I think that is the thesis that I'm personally focusing on, and ultimately that's the answer to my question.
Those are great answers, and to those I would add membership, rewards, and loyalty, and using the blockchain as a CRM. And if anyone hasn't heard of Mojito, which was our first spin out, check out what they're doing there. But I want to do one quick lightning end round. Would love for each of you to say where to reach you, where they can look up your project, and also the name of a project that's not up on stage today that you love, that you think is doing it well.
I'll go. You go. Name of a project that I like that is not on this stage is Parallel. I think they're the most advanced Web3 gaming. I think they're the most advanced Web3 gaming today. And what was the first question of that?
How to reach you.
Oh, follow me on Twitter, Luca Nets, and follow Pudgy Penguins on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all the other great social medias.
For me, the project that I'm like deeply bullish on, it's Jack Butcher and everything he touches. Checks. Opepin. And yeah, to me, like truly one of the best creators and creative people in the internet today. And the fact that he's like focused so deeply on NFTs, again, like grateful Luca's in the space, grateful Jack Butcher's in the space. And then yeah, how to reach me, search DeGods or Utes and message Kevin DeGods to reach me.
You stole mine. I was going to say Jack Butcher, but
that's
no,
a good one.
Shout out to the G.
Sick.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to go with token proof. They're doing an amazing job. I actually see Fonz right up. I swear I didn't even see you there. Amazing. No, but like, here's the thing. I come from music, right? So dance music, music and media. We were trying to figure out like NFT ticketing for so long. This is such a very, very obvious thing that NFTs are well situated, and this technology is well situated to do. I think Token Proof is doing the best job of it right now, and so I'm excited to see how that continues to evolve. And then if you want to follow along with us at NFT Now across all platforms, also at Now Media, we just unveiled our expansion. NFT Now is gonna be one of our flagship brands. We also have Now Runway, Now AI. We got something coming for gaming real soon. We're continuing to expand at the intersection of tech and culture. And for me, it's just at Matt Medved on everything. So
awesome.
Thank you so much.
And so for me, it's amanda.eth, at Amanda Cassett on Twitter. Check out Serotonin at serotonin.co. And mine would be Art Blocks and Squiggles. Chose a squiggle for the front cover of my book, Web3 Marketing, if you want to check that out as well. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to our amazing panelists.